In the marble lobby of Heart Biotech, 6-year-old Lila stood frozen among dozens of rushing employees. Her small body trembled. Tears streamed down her face, but no sound came out. She was silent in her terror. A man, in a janitor's uniform, mop still in hand, approached her slowly. His hands moved in deliberate signs. "Don't touch my child." The voice tore through the crowd. Amelia Hart, CEO of the company, charged forward and blocked him with her body. But the man didn't stop signing. And then, impossibly, Lila's hands lifted. She signed back. "I'm okay." The lobby fell silent. Everyone stared. Amelia Hart was 32 years old and the youngest CEO in the biotech industry. She had built Heart Biotech into a giant, a company known for cutting-edge medical innovation, but her success came at a price. A year ago, a lab explosion in her facility had killed her husband, David, and left her daughter Lila without a voice. The trauma had stolen the little girl's ability to speak. Doctors said it was psychological. Time might heal it. Or it might not. Since that day, Amelia had changed. She became colder, sharper, obsessed with control. She built walls around herself and around Lila. No one got close. No one was allowed to. She told herself it was protection. She plostened to T-plice, but deep down, she knew it was fear. Fear of losing someone again. Fear of not being enough. Lila was a quiet child now, not by choice, but by circumstance. She attended a private school with round-the-clock security. She had therapists, tutors, and caregivers, but none of them could reach her. She lived in a world of silence, and Amelia didn't know how to pull her out. Every night, Amelia sat by her daughter's bed and watched her sleep. She whispered apologies into the dark. She blamed herself for the explosion, for not being there, for not protecting David, for not saving Lila's voice. The guilt was a weight she carried every hour of every day. Ethan Cole was 36 years old, and he mopped floors in the building where Amelia ruled. But that wasn't who he used to be. 5 years ago, Ethan had been a speech therapist and a tech innovator. He had founded a company called SignLink, which developed an AI system that translated sign language into spoken words in real time. It was revolutionary. It gave voice to the voiceless. His wife, Grace, had been a teacher for deaf children. She believed in his work. She believed in him. Together, they were going to change the world. But then, Apex Dynamics, a corporate giant, came in as a partner. They promised funding, distribution, global reach. Ethan trusted them. He signed papers he didn't fully read, and then, overnight, they took everything. They claimed ownership of the technology through a contract clause Ethan hadn't noticed. They locked him out of his own creation. The legal battle drained him. He lost his company, his savings, his reputation. The media called him a fraud, a man who had tried to steal his own invention. Grace couldn't bear it. The shame, the betrayal, the collapse of everything they had built. One night, she took her own life. Ethan found her in the morning. His world ended that day. He was left with his 8-year-old son, Ben, and nothing else. No money, no career, no future. He took the only job he could find, janitorial work. He told himself it was temporary, but temporary became months, then years. He scrubbed floors in the same buildings where people like him used to walk with briefcases and badges. He became invisible. And maybe that was easier. Ben never complained. The boy was resilient, smart, and kind. He learned sign language from his mother before she died, and he still practiced it every day. Ethan was proud of him, but the guilt never left. He had failed Grace. He had failed his dream, and some days he wasn't sure he deserved to keep going. 2 worlds. A woman at the top and a man at the bottom. And one little girl who couldn't speak, standing between them. After the scene in the lobby, Amelia's first instinct was to protect. She ordered security to keep that man away from her daughter. She didn't care who he was. He had no right to approach Lila. But that night, Lila did something she hadn't done in months. She wrote on a piece of paper and handed it to her mother. "He understands me." Amelia stared at the words. Her chest tightened. She wanted to dismiss it, but she couldn't, because she had seen it too. The way Lila had stopped crying the moment the man signed to her. The way her daughter had signed back, something Amelia hadn't even known she could do. The next morning, Amelia reviewed the security footage. She watched the moment again and again. The man's hands moved with precision, with purpose. He wasn't guessing. He was fluent. And then she noticed something else. The signs he used weren't standard ASL. They were part of a specialized system, one designed for children with trauma-induced mutism. It was a system she had researched a year ago, desperately looking for anything that could help Lila. But she had found almost nothing, except one name. SignLink 1, a prototype that had never been released to the public. She pulled the janitorial staff records. Ethan Cole, 36 years old. No criminal history. Employment references from 3 other buildings. Standard background check. Nothing unusual. But Amelia didn't stop there. She ran his name through a deeper search. And that's when she found it. News articles. From 5 years ago. Tech innovator Ethan Cole, accused of patent fraud. SignLink founder loses company in legal battle. The voice maker who fell from grace. She read every article. She saw his face in older photos. Clean cut. Smiling. Standing next to a woman and a young boy. She read about the suicide of his wife. She read about the collapse of his company. And she read about Apex Dynamics. Her hands went cold. Apex Dynamics. She knew that name. Hard Biotech had purchased an AI communication system from them 2 years ago. It was integrated into their medical devices for patients with speech disabilities. The system was called VoxBridge. But the core technology, the underlying algorithm, was something Apex had acquired from a smaller company. A company they had absorbed and dismantled. Amelia opened her acquisition files. She found the original contract. And there it was. SignLink Technologies. Purchased by Apex Dynamics. Rights transferred. Original founder, Ethan Cole. She sat in her office until midnight, staring at the documents. The man who mopped her floors had invented the technology her company was built on. And she hadn't known. The world hadn't known. He had been erased. That night, she couldn't sleep. She stood in Lila's doorway and watched her daughter breathe softly in the dark. She thought about the man in the lobby, about the way he had looked at Lila, not with pity, not with curiosity, but with understanding. He had seen her daughter not as broken, but as someone who needed to be heard. And for the first time in a year, Lila had been heard. Amelia didn't know what to do with that. But she knew she couldn't ignore it. She asked herself a question she had been avoiding for too long. If he once gave a voice to the voiceless, what is he trying to say to me now? 2 days later, Amelia made a decision. She drove to the address listed in Ethan's file. It was a workers' housing complex on the edge of the city, a cluster of small, worn-down apartments. She brought Lila with her. She told herself it was because she wanted to see who this man really was. But part of her knew it was because Lila wanted to see him too. When Ethan opened the door, his face showed surprise, then something softer. Behind him, Ben stood in the living room, shy, but curious. The apartment was small and simple. The furniture was old but clean. There were books on the shelves, most of them about language and therapy. On the kitchen table, a stack of drawings. Ben's drawings. One of them showed 2 hands signing the word hope. Lila stepped inside without hesitation. She walked straight to Ben, and the 2 children looked at each other. Then Ben lifted his hands and signed. "Nice to meet you." Lila's face lit up. She signed back, slowly, carefully. "Thank you." Amelia stood in the doorway, frozen. She hadn't seen her daughter smile like that in a year. Ethan gestured to the couch. "Please, sit." His voice was quiet, steady. "Amelia Saturday. She didn't know what to say. She had come here with questions. But now, sitting in this humble space, they felt too sharp, too intrusive. The sky outside darkened. Rain began to fall, softly at first, then harder. Ethan checked his phone. "The bridge is flooded," he said. "It happens when it rains like this. It'll take a few hours to clear." Amelia tensed. She hadn't planned to stay, but Lila was sitting on the floor with Ben, drawing together, signing to each other in a way that looked like a conversation. She couldn't take that away from her. "We can wait," she said. Ethan made soup from potatoes and carrots. He toasted bread and brewed tea. It was simple, but it was warm. They ate together at the small table. Lila laughed. It was a soundless laugh, but it was real. Amelia felt something crack inside her chest. After the children were asleep on the couch, wrapped in blankets, Amelia and Ethan sat across from each other in the dim light. The rain drummed against the windows. "Who are you, really?" Amelia asked. Ethan looked at her for a long moment. "I'm someone who used to believe that silence could still speak," he said. "Now, I'm just learning how to live again." Amelia swallowed. "I read about you. About what happened." Ethan nodded slowly. "Then you know more than most people do. Why didn't you fight back?" she asked. "Why didn't you tell the world what they did to you?" Ethan's gaze drifted to the window. "Because fighting back wouldn't bring her back. And it wouldn't give me my son's childhood back. So I let it go. But you lost everything." "I lost what I thought mattered," Ethan said. "I still have Ben." "That's enough." They sat in silence for a long time. The rain was the only sound. Amelia realized she hadn't felt this kind of stillness in years. It wasn't empty. It was full of things that didn't need to be said. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer. "My daughter hasn't smiled like that since her father died." Ethan looked at her. "She's strong. Stronger than she knows." "How do you know that?" "Because she's still trying," he said. "Even in the silence. She's still reaching out." Amelia's eyes burned. She looked away. "I don't know how to reach back." Ethan leaned forward slightly. "You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to be there. That's all she needs." Amelia nodded, unable to speak. Outside, the rain continued. Inside, two broken people sat together, sharing a pain they didn't need to name. The next morning, the rain stopped. The bridge reopened. Amelia thanked Ethan and took Lila home. But her mind was racing. She couldn't stop thinking about what she had learned. About the contract, about the technology, about the man who had been erased. She went to her office and pulled the internal files. She searched for every document related to Voxbridge. She found the acquisition report. She found the patent transfer. And then she found something that made her blood run cold. The signature on the transfer contract was Ethan's. But it was dated 3 days after his wife's death. She had worked in corporate law long enough to know what that meant. No one in their right mind would sign away their life's work 3 days after losing their spouse. She looked closer. The signature didn't match the one on his earlier contracts. It was close, but not exact. Amelia sat back in her chair, her heart pounding. Ethan hadn't signed that document. Someone had forged it. Apex Dynamics had stolen his technology, and Heart Biotech, her company, had unknowingly profited from that theft. She had built part of her empire on a lie that had destroyed a man's life. She printed every document. She locked them in her office safe, and then she sat alone in the dark, staring at the city lights outside her window. She had always believed she was building something good, something that helped people. But now she realized that good things could be built on bad foundations. And she didn't know what to do with that. That night, she stood in Lila's room again. Her daughter was asleep. Her small hands curled under her chin. Amelia thought about Ethan. About the way he had looked at Lila. The way he had signed to her, gently, patiently. As if her silence wasn't a problem to fix but a language to learn. She thought about the man who cleaned her floors every day, invisible to everyone, carrying a weight no one saw. And she thought about the fact that her company was living off his stolen dream. She made a decision. She didn't know yet what she would do, but she knew she couldn't walk away. Not from him. Not from the truth. 3 days later, a video went viral. It was 7 seconds long. Grainy security footage from the lobby. It showed Ethan reaching toward Lila. The caption read, "Janitor touches CEO's child without permission. Number, hands off my child." The video had been edited. The part where Lila signed back was cut out. The part where she smiled was gone. All that remained was a man reaching for a child and a mother screaming. The video exploded. Within hours, it had millions of views. Comments poured in. Fire him. Arrest him. What kind of company allows this? News outlets picked it up. Heart Biotech's PR team went into crisis mode. Amelia's phone rang non-stop. The board demanded a statement. Legal demanded an investigation. Amelia tried to explain. She tried to tell them what really happened. But no one wanted to hear it. The video was too powerful. The narrative was too clean. A predator. A victim. A mother's rage. It didn't matter that it was a lie. The damage was done. Security activated the company's no-contact policy. Ethan was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. He was banned from the building. Amelia fought back. She told them Ethan had done nothing wrong. But the board overruled her. "We have to protect the company's image," they said. "We can't take risks." Then the news stories started. Janitor accused of approaching child has dark past. Former CEO claims Ethan Cole fabricated research data. The articles were vague, anonymous sources, carefully worded to avoid libel. But the message was clear. Ethan was dangerous. Amelia traced the leaks. They all led back to one place. Apex Dynamics. They were behind it. They had planted the video. They had fed the stories to the press. They were trying to destroy Ethan a second time. And now, they were using Lila to do it. Amelia's fury turned cold and sharp. She contacted her security team. She ordered them to find out who had accessed the lobby cameras. They found a contractor badge, Apex Contractor, planted weeks ago. The man had been waiting, watching. And when Ethan finally got close to Lila, he struck. It was calculated, it was cruel, and it was working. Paparazzi started following Lila to school. Photographers camped outside their home. Amelia hired more security, but it didn't stop. Her daughter was being hunted for a story that wasn't true. One afternoon, Lila's school called. There was a crowd outside. Lila was trapped. Amelia raced to the school, but traffic was gridlocked. She watched the live stream on her phone, helpless. Lila stood on the school steps, surrounded by flashing cameras and shouting reporters. The little girl was shaking, her hands pressed over her ears. And then, out of nowhere, Ethan appeared. He pushed through the crowd. Security tried to stop him, but he didn't care. He reached Lila and knelt down in front of her. He blocked the cameras with his body. His hands moved slowly, steadily. "Breathe with me. You're safe." Lila's eyes locked onto his. Her hands lifted. She signed back. "I'm scared." "I know." He signed. "But I'm here. Just breathe." The crowd closed in. Someone grabbed Ethan's shoulder. Security pulled him back. He didn't resist. He kept his eyes on Lila, kept signing, even as they dragged him away. "You're brave. You're safe." A photographer captured it all. The image went viral within minutes. A man being restrained, a child reaching for him, and in the background, Amelia's car pulling up, too late. Amelia jumped out and ran to her daughter. She held Lila tightly, shielding her from the cameras, but her eyes were on Ethan. He was on the ground, hands behind his back, face calm. And in that moment, Amelia understood. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't bad luck. Someone was trying to destroy them both. And she was done letting it happen. She stood, Lila in her arms, and walked to Ethan. She offered him her hand. He looked up at her, surprised. She pulled him to his feet, in front of every camera, every reporter, every lens. And then she said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "This man saved my daughter. Twice." The cameras exploded with flashes. The headlines would write themselves. But Amelia didn't care. She looked Ethan in the eye, and he looked back, and for the first time, they were on the same side. That night, Amelia called an emergency meeting in her private office. She had her security chief pull every piece of footage from the lobby, unedited, from every angle. She had her legal team pull the Apex contracts. She had her IT team trace every leak, every planted story, every false report. And then she saw it. Clear as day. The man who had uploaded the viral video was wearing an Apex contractor badge. The man who had leaked the old research scandal was an Apex PR consultant. The entire campaign had been orchestrated. Apex Dynamics wasn't just trying to ruin Ethan. They were trying to ruin anyone who threatened to expose the truth. Amelia called her driver. She didn't tell anyone where she was going. She drove through the rain to the workers' housing complex. She knocked on Ethan's door. He opened it, surprised. His eyes were tired, his face drawn. "You shouldn't be here," he said quietly. "People will twist it." "Let them," Amelia said. She held out a USB drive. "Ethan, you were set up. All of it. The video, the stories, the contract. They forged your signature. They stole SignLink. And they've been trying to bury you ever since." Ethan stared at the drive. He didn't take it. "I know," he said. Amelia blinked. "You know? I've known for years," he said. "But I can't fight them. I don't have the resources. I don't have the platform. All I have is my son, and I won't risk him." "Then let me fight for you," Amelia said. Ethan shook his head. "You'll lose everything." "I already lost everything once," she said. "I know what it costs, and I'm willing to pay it." Ethan looked at her for a long moment. Rain dripped from her coat. Her eyes were fierce, determined, and something else, desperate. "Why?" he asked. "Why do you care?" "Because you saved my daughter," Amelia said. "And because my company is built on what they stole from you. I didn't know. But now I do. And I can't live with that." Ethan's jaw tightened. He looked down. "I don't want revenge. I just want your daughter to stop being afraid of silence." Amelia's throat tightened. She nodded. "Then help me give her that." She turned to leave. But as she reached her car, her phone rang. It was the hospital. Lila had been rushed to the ER. Panic attack. Severe. The doctors couldn't calm her down. No one could communicate with her. Amelia's hands shook. She looked back at the apartment. Ethan was standing in the doorway, watching her. She didn't have to say anything. He saw it in her face. He grabbed his jacket and ran to her car. "Drive," he said. And she did. The hospital was chaos. Nurses tried to hold Lila still. Monitors beeped. The little girl thrashed, silent, terrified, trapped in her own panic. Amelia ran into the room, but Lila didn't see her, didn't hear her. She was gone, lost in the fear. Ethan stepped forward. "Let me try," he said. The doctor hesitated. "Sir, we need to sedate her." "Give me 1 minute," Ethan said. The doctor looked at Amelia. She nodded. Ethan moved slowly to the bed. He didn't touch Lila. He just placed his hand near hers, where she could see it. And then he began to sign. Slowly, gently. "You are safe. I am here. Breathe with me." Lila's eyes flickered. She saw his hands. Her breathing was still rapid, but she was watching. "In," he signed. Inhaling deeply. "Out," he signed. Exhaling, Lila's chest rose and fell, faster at first. Then slower. Her small hands lifted, shaking. She signed back. Scared. I know, Ethan signed. But you are so brave. You are stronger than the fear. Her fingers moved again, hesitant. Will it stop? Yes, he signed. It will stop. You are safe. I promise. Her heart rate monitor began to slow. The beeping softened. Her body relaxed. Her hand reached out, and Ethan took it gently. She held on. Tears streamed down her face, but her breathing was steady now. Calm. The doctor stared. The nurses stared. Amelia stood in the corner, her hand over her mouth. Silent tears falling. Lila's fingers moved one last time. Thank you. Ethan signed back. You're welcome, brave girl. When Lila finally fell asleep, Ethan stepped back. Amelia walked out into the hallway. She leaned against the wall and let herself break. Ethan followed her. He didn't say anything. He just stood nearby, giving her space to fall apart. When she finally looked up, her eyes were red but clear. You did something no doctor could do, she said, her voice raw. Not me, Ethan said. Her. She just needed someone to listen with their hands. Amelia shook her head. I've been so afraid of losing her. I built walls around us both. I thought I was protecting her, but I was just making her more alone. Ethan's voice was soft. You didn't know. Now you do. Amelia looked at him. Teach me. Teach me how to reach her. Ethan nodded. I will. In that moment, standing in the sterile hospital hallway, something shifted. Amelia stopped running. She stopped hiding. And she made a decision. She was going to fight. Not just for Ethan, not just for Lila, but for the truth, for justice, and for the voice that had been stolen from a man who had only wanted to help people speak. 2 weeks later, Amelia called a press conference. It was international. Every major outlet was there. The board tried to stop her. They threatened to remove her as CEO. She ignored them. She stood at the podium in a sleek black suit. Her face calm, but determined. Behind her, a massive screen displayed documents, contracts, signatures, and one name, Apex Dynamics. 5 years ago, she began, a man named Ethan Cole invented a technology that gave voice to the voiceless. It was called SignLink. It was revolutionary. And it was stolen. The room erupted. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Amelia raised her hand. Heart Biotech unknowingly purchased that stolen technology from Apex Dynamics. We have been using it in our medical devices for 2 years. I did not know this until recently, but now that I do, I cannot stay silent. She pulled up the forged signature. She showed the timeline. She presented affidavits from forensic analysts confirming the forgery. And then she said the words that would change everything. The man who mops the floors of this building is the genius who created the technology that changed an industry. And I am here to give him back his voice. She gestured to the side of the stage. Ethan stepped out, wearing a simple suit Ben had helped him pick out. The room went silent. He walked slowly to the podium. Amelia stepped aside. Ethan looked out at the sea of faces. He had been invisible for so long. Now, everyone was watching. I didn't come here for revenge, he said quietly. I came here because I believe every child deserves to be heard. Not just with their voices, but with their hands, their eyes, their hearts. I don't need glory. I just need the world to remember that silence is not the absence of communication. It's a language we've forgotten how to hear. The room was frozen, and then, from the back, someone started clapping. Then another. Then another. The applause grew, a wave of sound that filled the room. Ethan stood there, stunned, and then, from the side entrance, a small figure walked onto the stage. Lila. She was holding a device in her hands. A prototype. SignLink 2. She placed it on the podium. Her fingers moved over the screen. The AI processed her signs. And then, for the first time in over a year, Lila's voice filled the room. It was soft, synthesized, but clear. Mom, I can talk. Amelia's legs buckled. She dropped to her knees and pulled her daughter into her arms. She sobbed openly, holding Lila as if she might disappear. The cameras captured it all. The world watched, and for one moment, there was no scandal, no corporation, no lawsuit. There was just a mother and a daughter, and the man who had given them both a voice. 1 year later, SignLink Foundation opened its doors. It was a nonprofit, funded by Amelia's personal fortune and a settlement from Apex Dynamics. The foundation provided free devices to children with speech disabilities. The program was called Hope Speaks. Ethan ran it. Amelia served on the board. Together, they trained volunteers, developed new technology, and reached thousands of families. Ben and Lila became the faces of the foundation. They taught other kids sign language. They shared their stories. And they proved that silence didn't mean you had nothing to say. Ethan still worked as a janitor. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to. Every morning, he mopped the halls of the new Hope Speaks Center. He said it kept him grounded. It reminded him where he had been and how far he had come. Amelia walked those halls every day. And every time she saw him, she smiled. "You know I see you," she said one morning, leaning against the wall, still cleaning the world, one floor at a time. Ethan looked up, mop in hand, and grinned. Someone has to. Lila no longer needed the device. Her voice had come back naturally, slowly, with therapy and time. But she still signed. She said it was her second language now. And she was teaching others. Ben was her partner in everything. The two of them were inseparable, like siblings. They laughed, they fought, they built things together. They were proof that healing wasn't just about what you lost. It was about what you found. On the day of the new Hope Speaks Center's grand opening, hundreds of people gathered. Families, children, donors, reporters. The sun streamed through the tall glass windows, casting light across the open space. It was beautiful, clean, hopeful. Lila stood on the small stage, her hands moving confidently as she signed the words that appeared on the screen behind her. "I used to be afraid of my silence, but now I know that silence is just another way to speak, and everyone deserves to be heard." The crowd applauded. Amelia stood at the back, arms crossed, watching her daughter with pride. Ethan stood beside her. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. After a moment, Amelia turned to him. Her voice was soft, but steady. "The first day I met you, I was terrified of your hands touching my child. Now, I just wish those hands never leave our lives." Ethan looked at her, surprised. Amelia smiled, her eyes warm. "You gave her back her voice, Ethan. And you gave me back my heart." Ethan's throat tightened. He opened his mouth, but no words came. So instead, he signed. 3 simple gestures. "Let me help." Amelia's eyes filled with tears. She reached out and took his hand. "You already are." The sun dipped lower, casting golden light through the windows of Hope Speaks. 4 people stood together, hands intertwined. 2 children and 2 adults. A family built not by blood, but by healing. The world outside kept turning, but inside, in that moment, they had everything they needed. Love, justice, and a language that everyone finally could understand.